About 2300 years ago, India got united as one nation under Chandragupta Maurya. After he successfully defended India from Greek invaders, the Indians and Greeks started having relations as neighboring political powers. Megasthenes, a Greek diplomat who traveled across India, narrates his view and experiences in India and that are recorded in his book Indica. India, which is in shape quadrilateral, has its eastern as well as its western side bounded by the Great Sea, but on the northern side it is divided by Mount Hemodos. From that part of Scythia, which is inhabited by those Scythians who are called the Sakai, while the fourth or western side is bounded by the river called the Indus, which is perhaps the largest of all rivers in the world after Nile. The extent of the whole country from east to west is said to be 28,000 stadia and from north to south 32,000. Being thus of such vast extent, it seems well high to embrace the whole of the northern tropic zone of the earth, and in fact, at the extreme point of India, the sundial may frequently be observed to cast no shadow, while the constellation of the Bear is by night invisible, and in the remotest parts, even Arcturus disappears from view. Consistently with this, it is also stated that shadows there fall to the southward. The inhabitants, in like manner, having abundant means of subsistence, exceed in consequence the ordinary stature and are distinguished by their proud bearing. They are also found to be well skilled in the arts, as might be expected of men who inhale pure air and drink the very finest water. And while the soil bears on its surface all kinds of fruits which are known to cultivation, it has also underground numerous veins of all sorts of metals, for it contains much gold and silver, and copper and iron in no small quantity, and even tie and other metals which are employed in making articles of use and ornament, as well as the implements and accoutrements of war. For since there is a double rainfall in the course of each year, one in the winter season when the sowing of wheat takes place as in other countries, and the second at the time of the summer solstice, which is the proper season for sowing rice and posporu, as well as sesamum and millet. The inhabitants of India always gather in two harvests annually, and even should one of the sowing prove more or less abortive, they are always sure of the other crop. The fruits, moreover, of the spontaneous growth and the roots which grow in the marshy places and are of varied sweetness afford abundant subsistence for men. The fact is, almost all the plants in the country have a moisture which is alike genial, whether it is derived from the rivers or the rains of the summer season period with surprising regularity, while the great heat which prevails dampens the roots which grow in the marshes and especially those of the tall reed. But further, there are usages observed by the Indians which contribute to prevent occurrence of famine among them. For whereas among other nations it is usual in the contests of war to ravage the soil and thus to reduce it to an uncultivated waste, among the Indians, on the contrary, by whom husbandmen are regarded as a class that is sacred and inviolable, the tillers of the soil, even when battle is raging in their neighborhood, are undisturbed by any sense of danger, for the combatants on the either side in waging the conflict make carnage of each other, but allow those engaged in husbandry to remain quite unmolested. Besides, they neither ravage an enemy's land with fire nor cut down its trees. India again possesses many rivers, both large and navigable, which having their sources in the mountains which stretch along the northern frontier, traverse the level country, and not a few of these, after uniting with each other, fall into the river called Ganga. Now, this river, which at its source is 30 stadia broad, flows from north to south and empties its waters into the ocean, forming the eastern boundary of the Gangaridai, a nation which possesses a vast force of the largest sized elephants. Owing to this, their country has never been conquered by any foreign king, for all other nations dread the overwhelming number and strength of these animals. The whole population of India is divided into 7 castes, of which the first is formed by the collective body of the Brahmins, which in number are lesser than others but supreme in point of dignity over other classes. For the philosophers, being exempted from all public duties, are neither the masters nor the servants of others. They are, however, engaged by private persons to offer the sacrifices due in lifetime and to celebrate the obsequies of the dead. For they, the Brahmins, believed to be most dear to the gods and to be most conversant with matters pertaining to Hades. In the requital of such services, they receive valuable gifts and privileges. To the people of India at large, they also render great benefits. When gathered together at the beginning of the year, they forewarn the assembled multitudes about droughts and wet weather, and also propitious winds and diseases, and other topics capable of profiting the hearers. Thus, the people and the sovereign, learning beforehand what is to happen, always make adequate provision against a coming deficiency and never fail to prepare beforehand what will help in a time of need. The second caste consists of husbandmen, who appear to be far more numerous than the others, being moreover exempted from fighting and other public services. They devote the whole of their time to tillage. Or would an enemy coming upon a husbandman at work on his hand do him any harm? For men of this class, being regarded as public benefactors, are protected from all injury. The land thus remaining unravaged and producing heavy crops, supplies the inhabitants with all that is requisite to make life very enjoyable. The husbandmen themselves, with their wives and children, and no private person is permitted to own the land. Besides the land tribute, they pay into royal treasury a fourth part of the produce of the soil. The third caste consists of neatherds and shepherds, and in general of all herdsmen who neither settle in town nor in villages, but live in tents. By hunting and trapping, they clear the country of noxious birds and wild beasts. As they apply themselves eagerly and assiduously to this pursuit, they free India from the pests with which it abounds, all sorts of wild beasts and birds which devour the seeds sown by the husbandman. The fourth caste consists of the artisans. Of these, some are armorers, while others make the implements which husbandmen and others find useful in their different callings. This class is not only exempted from paying taxes, but even receives maintenance from the royal exchequers. It is well organized and equipped for war, holds the second place in pint of numbers, and gives itself up to idleness and amusement in the times of peace. The entire force, men at arms, war horses, war elephants, and all other maintained at the king's expense. The sixth caste consists of the overseers. It is their province to inquire into the superintendent, all that goes in India, and make reports to the king, or where there is not a king, to the magistrates. The seventh caste consists of the councillors and assessors, of those who liberate on public affairs. It is the smallest class, looking to number but the most respected on account of the high character and wisdom of its members. For from their ranks and advisers of the king are taken, and the treasurers of the state, and the arbiters who settle disputes, the generals of the army also, and the chief magistrates usually belong to this class. The Indians all live frugally, especially when in camp. They dislike a great undisciplined multitude, and consequently they observed good order. Theft is of very rare occurrence. Megasthenes says that those who were in the camp of Chandragupta, wherein lay 400,000 men, found that the thefts reported on any one day did not exceed the value of 200 drachmae, and this among a people who have no written laws but are ignorant of writing, and must therefore in all the businesses of life trust to memory. They live, nevertheless, happily enough, being simple in their manners and frugal. They never drink wine except at sacrifices. Their beverage is a liquor composed from rice instead of barley, and their food is principally a rice pottage. The simplicity of their laws and their contracts is proved by the fact that they seldom go to law. They have no suits about pledges or deposits, nor do they require either seals or witnesses, but make their deposits and confine in each other. Their houses and property they generally leave unguarded. These things indicate that they do which one cannot approve. For instance, that they eat always alone, and that they have no fixed hours when meals are to be taken by all in common, but each one eats when he feels inclined. The contrary custom would be better for the ends of social and civil life. Their favorite mode of exercising the body is by friction, applied in various ways, but especially by passing smooth ebony rollers over the skin. Their tombs are plain, and the mounds raised over the dead, lowly, in contrast to general simplicity of their style. They love finery and ornament. Their robes are worked in gold and ornamented with precious stones.